Before we get started, let's go around the table and just introduce ourselves. So I'd like to do that first. And we'll start with Jeff, who's sitting at the end again.
I'm Jeff Jones.
Harvey Harrell, retired.
John Hahn.
Elizabeth Medlock.
Tori Greaves.
Barry Rylings.
Yes.
Riley.
Yes, love the city of Asheville.
Hi, Solomon Miranda. Sorry, Sasha Berchinsky, home planner with Planning Grant Design.
Okay. Tori is going to read our opening statement today. Thank you, Tori.
Welcome to the Asheville Transit Committee. We meet on the third Tuesday of the month in the municipal building from 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. The Transit Committee is a volunteer citizen board designed to offer input and guidance to the Asheville Transit System and City Council. We do not set or change routes, control Asheville Transit's budget, or have authority over staff, drivers, or the management company. We are a group of citizens like you who are here to ensure community concerns are taken into consideration when setting public transit policy. We welcome public input in our meetings. You are allowed to comment on any matter under consideration prior to a final vote. If you have something to say, raise your hand and the chair will recognize you. There are also 2 public comment periods, one at the start of the meeting and one at the end. Any person addressing the committee is limited to 3 minutes. However, a group may have a single spokesperson who will be allowed 10 minutes. The committee will receive written information from any individuals or groups that cannot conclude their presentations within these time limitations. If you'd like to have an item discussed in more detail as part of our agenda, we ask that you speak with a member of the Transit Committee in order to have that item addressed during our next meeting. Thank you for your attendance. Your input is valued.
Thank you. Okay, the first thing we're going to be doing today is looking for the agenda for today's meeting. I just want to say about the agenda really quick. I know that the last time that we were here in January, we talked about having on the agenda today some detailed information about the extended service hours and kind of what it would take to implement the extended service hours. I just want to let you guys know that staff is working on that. It's not that they've ignored that. They just need a little bit more time to really kind of look at with what that would look like in terms of implementing the extended service hours in terms of timeline, people power, budget, and etc. So I just want to put that out that will be on our March agenda, and that we were heard on that. I just want to say that. Any other item in the agenda any other questions about the agenda? Jeff, I see your hand.
I would like to add an agenda item under old business.
Okay.
I would like for us to briefly discuss about the Transit Committee goals, and I have a couple of very specific questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
So if that could be added under old business.
How do we feel about that? Okay.
That's fine.
I'm writing with my big pen. Got it. Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay.
Do we have a secretary?
You don't have a secretary?
You know, I'm doing it right
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
now. I'm
John.
writing it down.
Thank you, John.
Oh, John, thank you. Actually, before I do that, does anyone have enough memory on their phone or anyone from the city? Can anyone record this meeting besides, I can get the recording from,
Sunshine request.
can I do that?
Yeah, typically we will email it the next day after a meeting, so we'll send it tonight or tomorrow.
Dana,
Okay.
I started the
Hey,
secretary.
Dana.
Here's something we have started now. And she's thinking,
We just got started. We just approved the agenda. That's all we did. I went through I like your hat. Everyone has really nice hats on today.
I just started pouring it out.
Did it really?
Just started it out.
Okay. So Dana, just what happened is we approved the agenda and Jeff added an item to talk about a couple of questions about transit goals. That's
Okay.
what happened thus far.
Jeff made the motion to approve this.
And we made the motion, Jeff made the motion to approve and John seconded the motion to. Okay. So the next thing we have is to look at the minutes from our last meeting in January.
I
That
move-
went
I
out.
move to approve them.
Okay.
Second.
We have Jeff moved to approve them, Harvey second. Do we have any discussion about those minutes? Okay. All in favor of approval of the minutes from January 28th, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, wonderful. Okay, Tori read the welcoming statement, so now we're going to go and have our first public comment. If you'd like to make public comment, please come forward. Anybody? Nobody? Okay. All right. It's like the first time that's happened. I think. Okay. Last chance. Okay. So then we'll go into old business. We're going to be following up first on the service changes. The last time we did talk about that there were some issues that had come up. There was an after the January with the service changes. So I guess can we hear from staff first about any other things that have been worked on with the service changes? I know that last time we talked about problems with the app, just people getting used to the routes and drivers and stuff. So I'll let y'all go first, or Barry go first and talk about any other tweaks that are being done.
Tweaks to the head signs.
Mm-hmm.
That's just been a little slow-moving process since you have to coordinate between the people making the voice enunciator messages. So we're working with them on that. It's just a slow process.
Operationally, I think the drivers have picked up on the routes and things seem to be going well. The OTP has come up well. There's a lot of positives out of this change. One of them might be the fact there was no public comment.
Yeah,
One or the
okay.
other.
How's the app been working? Because I know a lot of us talked a lot of time about that, the app being off. So what have y'all's experience been? Have you heard from riders or anyone else? Have you heard from riders about the use of the app being accurate, not
I
accurate?
haven't heard anything. So
I've used it, and it seems to be pretty much on.
In the north routes, what we talked about, we're having problems. Is that right, Marcella, that some of the north routes were off at the last meeting? How are those going?
we still have some dead zones, but
Yeah.
even
Okay.
then the app should give you schedule time.
Yeah.
So, it's really, all of that information has been consolidated with the changes, stops, and all that. No news is good news because we're not hearing that complaint. We're,
Okay.
appears to be working better.
So, explain to a dead zone to me, except that's a really good student. What's a dead zone?
The dead zone is where the tracking mechanism doesn't pick up the GPS location.
Okay. So yeah, we definitely have some of those in the
Yeah,
city.
we do have some of those still. And we're working with the vendor to see if there's a possibility of switch. But that's not something you just flip a switch and change either.
Right.
That could be, because you can't just change carriers either. You've got to change
Okay.
the components that accept the data, which is also an investment the city would have to make to change. And there are still some dead zones.
Any other thoughts from committee members about?
Yeah, because I noticed on the S1 there's like a dead zone because even when I'm home, I can see it when it comes up right there at CBS and I can hear it. They've been running pretty much on schedule, and it's just like when I catch it on the app, they give you like 9 to 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes that it'll be there, but the bus is coming like we're supposed to be there 20 after, and it ends up like 23 after, 24 after. It's just about on time right there.
There's a lot of that.
I like that.
And we've heard from the drivers that it's less stressful trying to keep schedule. You can run schedule and not have to press it, push it. It seems to be, and I've observed the morning till 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we were running 74, 75% OTV, and then it starts to drop and it goes down. at 70 plus right now, and have been since startup. So that's pretty cool. Big difference
Yeah,
compared to 58,
58, 59.
Now, we're also not peak season.
Right.
Things are gonna have some effect, but
Barry, the early arrivals is that being addressed? I think at one point, I think you said that there was recording. If you get early to the station, that's logged as an early arrival, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are others where I think I've noticed that bus drivers may leave the art station a minute or two early, just as I observe it.
yeah, we are addressing any of that, and we've been working with the vendor to get the data to be cleaner so that we can easily see what needs to be adjusted and what needs to be, discussed with the operator, and that's helping. Have you looked at the OTP lately?
I looked at the report for today.
Did you? Okay. Yeah. Now,
It looks good. I mean,
it does, and if you look at what is it, 10 points on the on time, and the lates are down 10, 12 points. I mean, there's huge change in what's going on, which is just, and when you go from 58, 59, 60 to 75 all morning, that's a big impact. That's an awful lot of customers seeing your bus show up within a very close window, and that's encouraging.
Yeah.
I noticed that W1 and W2 are the worst performers. Any way to accommodate that?
As we move forward and we look at more implementation of services, there's definitely things they can look at for scheduling. There's always improvements needed, and those jump right out at you. You're right.
Yeah.
I hadn't been out there. I usually go out to Goodwill, and I was talking to a church member Sunday, and she said the bus sits out there for 20 minutes. Why is that?
I don't have the schedule on hand, but yeah, there's going to be times when you have buses laying down to stay within windows to reach.
Yes, because you go out there quite frequently, but she said the bus sits out there like 20 minutes.
It is scheduled.
Yes, it's scheduled.
Scheduled to be there.
Should be scheduled there that long. Yeah.
One driver told me that the route could be extended a little bit further, and there's an important community that could be served if it went a little bit further beyond the Goodwill. But I don't know if you have the turnaround capability or the.
Yeah, there's a ways you got to look at. The other part of it is on Sunday morning, it's a whole different ballgame than Monday morning. So
My bus is full.
yeah. Well, especially with Go Purple, you're going to have a full bus. Yeah.
The 20-minute layover was intended to mitigate worst-case scenarios. I think we all know what that can look like.
Yeah.
If there's a car wreck.
They just
And so
Yeah.
in the morning,
waiting to turn
you
in.
could get in there early. You could get in out there a little bit early because you can run, as long as you hit your previous time point, you can run in there early, so they could be there, and that's adding on to that 20-minute recovery time up there. Turn it in 25 real quick.
And the bus that goes out to Leicester, it has a delay out there of about 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Those are put there to try to keep schedules on time. To, when it's heavy, it's heavy. We don't have the luxury to make big changes in when the connection points are downtown.
Right.
They all need to hit at the same time to make those connections.
I think it'd be interesting to look at, because if you talk to the drivers, and I've been on this route a lot, the S6 route that goes out to that Biltmore, the shopping place. Biltmore, whatever that's. Square Mall. The drivers always say that they run really slow because that route should be a lot faster. So I think it'll be interesting to see as we're looking at some of the south routes too, and these time build-ins can we pull back a little bit of that? Can we extend it out a little bit? But I think this is all good data and points to be talking about too.
Yeah, some of those, sometimes you make a intermediary recovery.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle of there, you lay down. lose that, you're still able to keep more on time. But those are the kind of things with scheduling people all continue to look at.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Barry, do you have any ability to differentiate between a bus that's running 7 minutes late and a bus that's 27 minutes late? Because I'm less concerned about buses that are running 7 minutes late. And I just picked those numbers out at random, but that would possibly be a source of comfort, is that, well, we're at 70% and that's good, but even 90% of those were still within 10 minutes of on time.
Yeah.
If you look at the dashboard thing, you can change the parameters of the data that you're looking at. Yeah. Well, not on the image, it's just a screenshot, but there we go. So here, so you can change this for allowable 0 minutes early to 5 minutes late. So you can change that to 25 minutes late.
I'm assuming you can do that, but I can't.
Yes.
Okay.
Accurate.
Okay.
So yes, the answer to your question is yes, we
We
can
have that.
look at those things, yeah.
Mhm.
And we do, we look at, I mean, if you go, you can pop 30 seconds early in there, be amazed what 30 seconds does for you.
Okay.
But we're trying to stick to 0.
I'm not
So
asking
we
you to
address
inflate
those that are
data,
running.
but there's a way to make the data make it look better.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, yeah, I mean, that would help.
There's like a different view in Swiftly, and you can see all the time points, and it's actually really interesting. In the mornings, you can see where it's running on time, or maybe even a little bit early because there's no traffic. And then you see 3 o'clock, and it has how late each time point is. So it'll be like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, and you can just see it progressively getting worse with traffic.
Can we, yeah, go ahead.
No, I said thank you.
Can we, for purposes of presentation at the next one, can you parse that data out and can you show us what it might look like that Jeff just said, and maybe like do a hit point of like 15? So maybe say, okay, these were running 5, 10, 15, but these were running like 25, so we can look at how the data changes. Not too many points, but maybe a couple different points for us to kind of look at what that looks like, to kind of look at the data around your question.
Yeah, because I think
5 minutes versus 25, so we can see that with a little bit of manipulation.
So
The
like
next
5,
time, that
10,
would be
15.
awesome. That would be like 20, that would be nice.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's just like fun.
That'd be awesome. I
Yeah.
think if we can get that for presentation, for data purposes.
Is there any parameter for early, like 30 seconds early, or?
You want to see what the impact of that is?
Mm-hmm.
Let's throw that out just so you get an idea. I mean, it could be a couple points,
Yeah,
2 or 3 points.
like 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early versus like 1 minute early, 30 seconds away.
I don't like a bus that's 1 minute early.
1 minute's a problem.
No, 1
I
minute
agree
is a
with you.
problem.
30 seconds sometimes is
Yeah,
it's still a problem,
yeah.
but it's amazing. So all that does is tell you that, you know what, they're pretty doggone close.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to make a transfer,
It's hard.
buses wait for no one.
They don't.
You are correct. You know
So, the parameters that I have down are doing 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, 15, and 20. And then, just for the sake of looking at earlies too, like 30 seconds, 1 minute, and 5 minutes.
That would be
Sure.
interesting, I think, to look at that data.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's just a slide.
Thank you for that, yeah. Cool.
Okay, this is just a little aside, it's sort of funny. I was on a bus and I think the new vocal system had started or something. It said, no eating, drinking, or smoking on the bus every 3 minutes.
That would be irritating.
And it was very loud.
When was that?
I think it was on the W2 about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I guess when you started it was one of the newer buses. And I looked around and looked at people and they're like, did you hear that a second time? Yeah. Did you hear that a third time? Yeah. I mean, it was like every 3 minutes.
Was it one of the off-colored buses, or was it one of the other newer?
I think it's one of the newer blue ones. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look into that. Something built into that one.
Yeah, because we didn't change
We didn't
Yeah.
I mean, because if it says it once, that's fine, but it would say it like
Oh, that's
every 3 minutes. It would repeat that over and over, and it was really, really loud, like they had the speaker cranked.
We'll look into that.
Are we okay to move on to the next
Yes,
agenda
yes.
item?
Sorry, I thought that was just.
No, I like that. Yeah, it's like okay. So the next thing on the agenda is the rider survey, which I'll just mention. Is that I'm working with Better Buses Together and Just Economics to do another rider survey, a 2020 rider survey. We haven't done really a rider survey since 2017. So it's been 3 years, and with the route changes, their suggestion was let's do a rider survey. Better Buses has been tracking, it was spreadsheet kind of data from people getting feedback about the route changes and things in general, plus you guys have been doing the rider forum, so I had like the notes in the rider forum, there's gonna be another rider forum. So what we're working on right now, and I hope to have it in front of you next month, is the first draft of that survey, working with Better Buses. So surveys and stuff is something I've done hundreds and hundreds of, and trained people to do. So what I'm basically doing is I'm taking survey items from the 2009, 2013, 2017, so I have a baseline, and over time, some stuff with the who's on board data that the transit system did for the 2019 as a benchmarking strategy, and then looking at some of the concerns and building questions around them. So I have a question bank right now that we're going to be going through and then putting into a format. And also Rochelle just approached me about doing a driver survey. And so that's something also that we can collect data on, and I can put in front of this committee, and so survey time. I think both would be wonderful. I think I think it's time to get some data, and to have some metrics in place and some good data. So that's moving forward, and I hope to have it in front of y'all soon. And thanks to Better Buses for spurring that forward, Rochelle spurring forward the idea of doing the driver survey in tandem with that. So that's coming. So if there's anything in the interim when you think about, I'll send you out the question bank at some point. Right now I just have a question bank with the range of possible questions we could ask. And then I'll get feedback from folks too, so that if you want to know something, then we can see if we can include it. It can't be a hugely long survey, but there's a way to write questions to gather a lot of data, sometimes in one question. So I'll make sure that we as a committee and as a public can have input. I pilot surveys, I don't just give surveys, so I do a lot of testing. So I'm hoping to take a group and pilot the survey and work out any problems with questions and understanding before it goes live. So that's something that is coming, the rider survey and the driver survey.
How do you plan to ask the questions? Like, how will you issue this survey?
So the idea right now is I use SurveyMonkey professional version because it gives me just a lot more control over the data. I can ask questions in different ways. I can get a file that I can read into another thing. It'll also do a printed version. So the idea is to have in many, we're just talking about this, but typically you want to have as many different formats as you can. So you want to have a mobile format, an online format, a paper and pencil format. So the idea is to have multiple different formats accessible to everyone, and it will definitely be in Spanish also. I automatically translate everything to Spanish. And I double check with 2 different Spanish speaker translators. So it 100% will be in Spanish. It'll be in mobile format for people that are visually impaired like me can listen to it. So that's the plan, is to make it accessible as possible.
As you do that,
Yeah.
how are we going to disseminate? Just be prepared to talk about that as well, because there may be more time to be out on the platform and just interview people. So I want to make sure it's disseminated in many different ways.
It will be.
You interview on the bus too?
Yeah, so the idea is that, right, so a lot of these surveys are onboard surveys, which means they're actually done on the buses. So the idea when we're going forth with it is to do a platform and an onboard survey, because you want to capture people where they already are. So that will all be taken into consideration. And there's also another writers forum coming, Carmen, am I right, in March? So that will have a lot more forum data and anecdotal data and qualitative data, and we'll also have quantitative data from the surveys. So data.
Go for it.
Which is
Yeah.
a good thing. I love data. But we'll be putting that in front of you very soon for your input and feedback. Artichoke. Okay, now here we go. So the resolution to make transit a commission, I'm laughing because I've gotten some of the most interesting feedback on that. As you know from the last meeting, I promised you I would write this resolution to,
Great.
I did a resolution format because a lot of folks that go in front of committees and boards and commissions, they have it in a resolution format. As you know, that we had already done the letter to city council about it, but so there's the resolution. I'm having a tough time. This is all being recorded, so I'll just put it out there. I'm getting a lot of pushback. I need to do some politicking. If there's anyone else that wants to get out there with me in politics, I'm getting every different answer you can imagine to why does the Multimodal Transportation Commission exist. 5 different people will give me 5 different answers of why it ever came about, why it's more effective. So my plan originally was to put in front of that commission next week, but when I tested the waters, we don't have the support. So my thought, and you guys give me help on this, is to delay it a little bit, and I'm going to do some one-on-one meetings with folks and see where I get with this resolution. So I'm just going to open it up. Y'all have read the resolution.
Yeah.
I'm having some pushback. Any thoughts or feedback you want to give me on that?
What would you say is the greatest reason for not wanting us to have a transit commission?
I've gotten everything from that the transit master plan was basically done by the Multimodal Transportation Commission to the transit master plan is the daughter of the AIM, the Asheville in Motion plan, okay, to we're just a bunch of bus riders and we've had massive turnover and we're not reliable, to they are in a better position to make decisions about transit. I can argue back on all those points a little bit because we also have the data of what the outcomes look like when transit was made a committee and the length of time in which it was an authority and a commission, which is starting in 1967, and that we have a very short blip in time in which it was a committee. So I'm getting pushback. I will tell you guys that I did a little bit more research and I've talked to a lot of people regionally. A multimodal transit committee is not the norm in the region, nor is it normative in the nation of how transit commissions are put together. There's only very few places that even have bike, ped, and transit on a commission. I've lived in like 2 or 3 places in the United States. So if you look at, let's benchmark. Let's look at Wilmington, Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, and any place regionally, and they are all either authorities or commissions. There are no other transit committees that are underneath multimodal transportation committees. So it's not a typical structure to have. I just want to let you guys know that because I just kind of dug around and started calling people. So if there's anything you think I can strengthen in the resolution, I'm open to that feedback. If there's any other strategies you think that we should be employing, let's put them on the table.
It's interesting, in everything that you said, I didn't hear anyone addressing the points that you raised in in your document about why it needs to be a commission. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to help you.
Yeah, because, I mean, yeah, did they understand that they could deep dive into their stuff and let us, and they I mean, I understand what you're
I'm
saying.
not, somebody, so, I could say a lot of things and I'm not going to. So what I would say is this. I would like members of the Transit Committee to sit at a multimodal transportation commission meeting.
Yeah, tell me when the next multimodal
Yeah.
meeting is.
It's next Wednesday.
What's that date?
It's the, I can't think about it off the top of my head right now, 26.
26.
I think it would be helpful, because I've been on it, I believe, since September. I think it would be helpful for more folks to sit, and I really want you to see what happens at those meetings.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
So that you can get an understanding of kind of where I'm coming from when I came forth and said, I think we need to be a commission again, for a lot of reasons. And then I think that would also give us more voice if I can get more input from, because you guys can show up as public, right? I mean, all of us can show up as a public. I'm sitting on
actually-
there and make public comment.
Yeah.
And actually kind of see how one of these meetings goes. Like, we had 42 agenda items, I believe, in our last meeting. And those are also open to the public. So I will say, if you want to peruse kind of all the stuff that's under multimodal, go look up their agendas from the last 3 or 4 meetings. I think, I've had 30, 40 documents attached that we have to get through in 2 hours. So I'll just put that out there. I think that's a good strategy is let's all show up and,
Visitors.
yeah.
What time do they meet?
3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Harvey.
3 to 5?
Yeah, they're 3 to 5.
And they're in this.
And where at?
Yeah, Wednesday. Usually in here.
In here?
Yeah, and the agendas will go up by next week, or by this week actually. The agenda's usually up. I haven't gotten it yet, but they're usually it'll be up by Thursday or Friday at the latest. So you can see the agenda, and you can see past agendas. And
Are they recorded and are there past recordings?
I don't remember seeing cameras there, but you're asking the girl that can't see. Do you record them? Did I ask you that?
I don't think currently we.
No, they're not recorded. And not only that, is that we don't see the minutes until they're attached to the agenda. Like 24, 48 hours before so we don't get to actually even see the minutes come out very, right when they're attached to the agenda. Also, and they're not recorded. But thank Paul.
I think one of the biggest problems with the resolution is the people who need to give it to you don't want to.
No, they're not.
So, yeah, we did this, shut up, do what you do.
Yeah.
And that, it's so, that's one of the ways that they don't really want to get their time to answer.
I will say though, and I think the chair and the vice chair are rotating off this next meeting. So waiting is a little bit of a strategy. So there will be a new chair of the Multimodal Transportation Commission.
At this next meeting.
And we're going to vote in a new chair. I'm guessing who it is, and I'll be meeting with them. So that's also happening is we have a leadership change on multimodal. So with a leadership change, it could bring an opening. So that's my other strategy, and just doing more internal work and waiting it out just a little bit. If that's okay with y'all, I think we'd get voted down right now. Yeah. Just my feeling.
Do you need a motion to that effect, Elizabeth?
No, I think we're okay. I think because we didn't really have a motion.
I'm good with waiting.
Yeah, okay. I hear y'all are okay with that strategy of just doing more work and waiting for some sea change to happen. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Anything I can strengthen in the resolution? I know I send it out. Is there any other, if you have feedback, please give it to me. If there's language that can be stronger, that would be awesome. All right, new business. Put your glasses on. Yes, we're doing now the,
Jeff's goals.
oh, Jeff's goals.
One
Thank
more
you.
item.
Look, you know what, I wrote them really big. Here they are, and I
All right.
forgot all about them. Yes, before we get to the census, which is our.
So at the
Yeah.
last meeting, the transit committee, we all identified ourselves as which of the goals we would want to work on.
Correct.
And so I was interested in bringing together a group of people who were interested in working on customer service. That's going to be my focus. I like having that focus. I emailed Eunice, and Eunice, I think, said, and I just want to get this on the table, there's problems with us meeting outside of committee times. And I find that very limiting. If we have, I don't know how many goals, but if there are a few of us who want to work on customer service, and it seems to me that we could go and do some really good work. Yes?
Basically, is that forming subcommittees?
Right.
Okay, that's acceptable.
Can you use the microphone?
I said that is acceptable if the goal is to form subcommittees to discuss some of the goals that came up when.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's
But it
good.
has to be public. You know, I may have
Okay.
misunderstood your
So my question is, how do we do that? How do we make it public? How do we meet?
I know how to do it.
Okay.
Kim told me,
All
and
right.
I just remembered that.
All right.
That's
So-
a potato about me. I can call a meeting. So we can actually, I can call a meeting outside of our regular monthly meeting, and we can literally spend that whole meeting in subgroups working on stuff strategically for the whole 2 hours.
Okay.
We just have to agree on a date. And I believe that's correct because I think I checked that. That I can call like a planning meeting. It will still have to be open, but Jeff, you can have your people work on stuff. We can have little subgroups meeting in the room and have flip charts, and we can do like a very deep dive planning meeting. And if that feels good to you, I think all we have to do is get consensus on a date. Does that sound right, you guys? I just want to check that because that was my understanding that as long as like we public notify, we can have a planning meeting.
Yeah, that's what I was asking you, this is like, I think you just need the 72 hours of public notice.
Okay.
So I want to modify that somewhat, okay? It's not necessarily a meeting of the entire transit committee. That's not what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Because some people want to work on customer service.
Right.
And some people want to work on funding.
Right, we would do
Well,
it.
she was saying we could split it.
We're gonna split it up. So I would do it more like split out style, like if I was facilitating a meeting.
Right.
I would have like this group, you're gonna be talking about funding, and this group, you're gonna be talking about this, and that way we can cross-pollinate at the end and kind of update each other.
And my interest is only meeting with people who want to meet on, because I
Right.
think there are people who want to do both, so they
Right.
can't come to this meeting you've suggested,
Okay.
because now you're going to separate them, and, well, I want to be in both. So my interest is in calling a group of people whose the only agenda item is customer service.
I feel like if we're going to do this, if we're sticking with the subcommittee idea and we have several other things, then we need to go ahead and like develop what subcommittees are going to do what. I feel like customer service, like our goals are split up in such a way, like we were talking last time, instead of merging some of them.
Yeah, we will,
Like,
yeah.
if you're not wanting people to split up between them, because I have varied interests in all kinds of different goals, so I don't want to make it that we're like splitting up anybody. It's just,
Yes, and
Yeah.
see, I want you to come to my customer service meeting, even though you have interest in other areas.
So what we could do here, I'm just thinking off the cuff here. So another way we could structure it is that we could do the meeting and then we could float from topic to topic. So we could deep dive customer service, and then we can move to budget, and then we can move. So we can actually then structure it so that, and then we can have time. So if you want to pop in and out,
Okay.
then we can pop in and out. So at this time, we're going to talk deep dive into customer service. At this time, we're going to deep dive into this. We put it on the agenda, and that way people can come to the meetings and we do it sequentially.
That works for me. Is that better than just having all the customer service people come together for a public meeting?
You know, I've come to like 6 or 8 of these meetings, and this is a bigger crowd this week, which is great, so, it's usually the same. We need to think of a different way, if people want to express themselves. You really kind of need to go to that, not a couple of months.
I'm not sure that's on topic with what we're doing right now. Okay. I'm looking at a meeting, and the public can come, but I really want to get people, the committee members, and get their input and get the ideas on how we want to go forward.
So Paul, what I hear you saying is, this is what, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if we're gonna open the floor and talk about customer service, that we can truly open the floor, and have members of the public, but you're saying you just wanna start with,
I think committee members have lots of ideas that they want to try to implement, and I want to flesh those out.
okay. And I think the big writers forum that's coming up in March, Carmen, will you signal me, is it March? Yeah?
The writers assembly?
Yeah.
We're shooting for March, yeah. We
So
don't
there's
know
gonna be a
the
big
date.
writers assembly in March, and so, we'll get with the dates, but we might wanna do this so that then the writers assembly can kind of then we can move forward in the writers assembly.
Supporting writers' assembly is one of the big
Correct.
items that I think
Right.
customer
So
service will want to do.
Right, and then the writers assembly, we can flesh it out more with a bunch of writers that come to that assembly. So we may wanna time it so that we do it before the writers assembly. That's just why we're gonna throw on the table so that we can get
Well, that's good.
both things met. Okay.
But really, the group here, the public, is not very public.
Yeah.
The people that come,
Right,
you know, we appreciate it,
okay.
the dog especially. I mean, that really sort of
Right,
how this guy trained his dog.
yeah,
It's on the bus.
yeah, yeah.
I apologize to interrupt. Could you use the microphone?
Oh, she's definitely using the microphone.
Hello. Is this on?
It's on.
Thank you.
Anyway, that's something that I would like to be involved in, you know, where you gather a bunch of people together. And as you say, this thing is happening in March or so. You know, we just make sure that we're a good part of it,
Yeah, we will.
because this is 3 people.
Yeah. So how do we feel about doing like deep dive into customer service, deep dive, we can parse it out over a period of time and then people can pop in, but maybe hold like a section of a day to do that. This time, we're going to do customer service, this time we're gonna talk about budget, that's why people can float in and out. We can have a wrap up at the end, and maybe doing it before the writers assembly.
And this would be at the same time as our normal meetings?
No, we have to do it outside.
I
of
would
the
say,
normal-
yeah.
We have to do it outside the normal meeting. How does that sound?
I'll work with that.
Sounds good.
Yeah? Okay,
What I can do is I'll have the date secured by the end of the week. I have all of your emails, so I can just, do a reply all and give you the date of our writers' assembly, so that you all can coordinate for dates.
okay. So, yeah, do we need a motion? I don't know if we need a motion to have another, do we need a motion to have a meeting outside the meeting? I guess we do.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of having an additional planning meeting? Okay,
Specifically for the transit committee goals.
correct,
Yes.
correct, that's
To
what we're
deep
gonna be
dive
doing.
into the goals.
Deep dive into the goals. And I actually am out of my mind to do that, and, okay.
Thank you.
So, we can deal with the calendar. I think amongst ourselves we can put out potential dates and do that way, and we'll fix it to happen before the writers' assembly in our next meeting. Okay, thanks for keeping me on track. Okay, census.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Sasha Vertinsky, and I don't know any of you actually. It's just different crowd, so I'm a different face. I work here in City Hall. I'm a city planner with Planning and Urban Design. And I'm here to talk to you about the census. I'm serving on the Complete Count Committee for Buncombe County. We're a group of folks of both government folks, nonprofit folks, and some private sector folks, university, education, things like that. So we're just doing some reach out to folks who maybe have networks into communities that are often undercounted, and wanted to make sure you are kind of plugged in and know what's going on. So you may have heard this before, but I'll say it again. Like, it's the goal of the U.S. Census to count everyone once, count them in the right place, and count every single person. And there's different ways that the census completes this count. So it'll be, you can mail your form in, which is the more traditional route, but you're also going to be able to do it by phone or by online, and even on a mobile data. So they're trying to kind of come up to the technological age. It's a short form. There's no more long form for census, which is bad for data wonks like myself. And just so you know, the Census Bureau workers they take an oath and they cannot release your data. That is a concern we hear from folks, but it's actually under penalty of law that they, if they release your data. The census will never ask for your social security number or money or donation or any kind of political activity, no PIN codes, anything like that. So, and that's just to make sure, in case encountered somebody asking you for that. The timeline. So we're coming up here on the census big time. So mid-March, most people will get a mailing where they live if they live in a structure. And to my understanding is that the census will keep mailing you until you respond. And eventually, after several mailings, you get a letter, maybe a postcard, another letter. They will come knocking on your door. So we try to, encourage people to just go ahead and respond. So that, because most people don't like somebody coming and knocking on their door, that they don't, But at the end of March, there's the count for folks who are experiencing homelessness. And April 1st is Census Day. So when the census is taken, it's really, the question is, where are you on April 1st, or where will you be? Where do you live on that particular day? In April, they do group quarters counts, like at campuses and nursing homes, things like that. And then, really, in May through July, they're going after the folks who haven't responded yet. So all of this leads to the census being completed by the end of the year. So just a little history. In 2000, Buncombe County, we had a 72% response rate. That went up to 76% 10 years ago. So our goal for our county is a 80% count response rate. Why is that important? So every single person who gets counted, that affects federal money that our state gets. So the math that we've done, about an average of $1,600 a year per person. So these counts are only done every 10 years. So a 1% increase is about 2,500 people. So we're talking about $4 million to Buncombe County for every year for 2,500 people, that 1%. So we're trying to get up 4%, so we can do the math. 40 million over 10 years for a 1% increase. It also affects our political representation. North Carolina is one of the faster growing states. We're pretty sure we're going to get another representative after this census, but it's possible that we could actually get a second representative as well to the U.S. Congress, just to be clear. And there, actually, if you go into the census documents, there's like pages and pages of all the programs that census determines the funding for. These are the top ones that most of us are probably somewhat familiar with what they're about. Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, Head Start, Section 8 vouchers, our CDBG grants, all kinds of things are really affected by the census count. And that's why it's so important that people respond. Oftentimes, families with kids under, ages 2 to 5, those are one of the big undercounted populations. So, and obviously children are some of the big, in our community need some of that funding the most. Medicaid is highlighted because an undercount really affects it even more than others because I won't go into the math, but it's, and just again, our complete count committee. We've also got subcommittees that are working to reach out specifically into different communities. We work some of the county staff. I don't know if you all know Rashida McDaniels is working with the faith community, and Samantha Cole at the Chambers working with businesses and education. So we're really trying to get the word out to everyone. This is a video that I'm not going to play because it doesn't have sound, or I didn't figure all that out. But the census at 2020 census.gov, if you're a social media person, they have all these great videos and things that you can just quickly share. You don't have to do the work to figure out. If you're willing to help be an ambassador for the census. Recruitment, I have to mention this. In Buncombe County, we're behind in terms of how many people have applied for these jobs. I think, we're in a low unemployment rate right now, and it's probably nationwide, but here especially, they're having a hard time finding enough people to do that enumeration, going door to door and counting folks when they don't respond. So that's really important. The pay is $15 to $17 an hour. It's part-time. It can be part-time, can be on the hours you want. Probably not at midnight, you can't be knocking doors at nighttime, but it's flexible schedules for folks. And lastly, we're just asking folks if you're willing to share things on social media, or if you're an organization that you would like somebody from the census to come to let us know. You can let me know. I think my email's at the top of this presentation, or through Marcella or Eunice, you could get in touch with me if you need some contact. But we just need as many people to participate as across the county as possible.
Do you only want to talk to people in their homes, or would you come to a homeless shelter and make a presentation?
Oh, sure. I mean, I think, and it probably wouldn't be me, but we've got census outreach folks. They're definitely working. They're willing to go to different places for sure. Yeah. I mean, if we're trying to talk to a group of people, we'd go to like a more,
I was really appreciative. Marcella and Eunice came to some places to talk about transit, and we can do more of that. Places that serve free lunch. Is that
right?
A place that you go?
Yeah, and we actually we do have some staff. Zoe at the county DHHS is working with the Asheville Homeless Initiative, and she's working on some of those strategies. So there are people working on that for sure. Any other questions? I know this is off your topic. It was fascinating listening to your meeting. I was just picturing myself running for the bus and watching it go by on Patton Avenue and like, oh. Don't do that. The app said I had 2 more minutes and it was gone. And but I appreciate your time very much. And please encourage your friends and family to respond. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. The next thing on our agenda. Yeah, free fair. Okay, so here's the deal. You've been inundated with documents about Fair Free, and we are down 3 people. So we can decide how much we discuss, what we want to discuss. Thomas sent something out. I had to check point of order, because a lot of times when you have a committee member send something like at the last minute, the committee actually has to vote to allow it. So we have to vote to allow it. I checked to be read into the minutes, so I will say that. So that's one thing we'll have to do. But I know that you had a ton of documents come at you. A lot of documents come at you, and some late in the game. So I'm going to put it out there how much discussion if we want Thomas's statement read into the minutes, we have to just vote to allow that since he's not present. That he sent like 12, I think it was a couple, this afternoon. I'm just throwing it out there because we're down 3 members, and I don't know if everybody's had time to just parse through all the documents you got.
I guess my question was more about what is the nature of the conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
I think Thomas's email just, conceptually, or I guess the evidence that you sent was just more about like fair free in general and the benefits and the drawbacks and what effect it has.
Right.
And his point would seem more about the specific
Like
trials
right.
in the city.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I wasn't really sure what nature of discussion we
Right.
wanted to have.
So I think, and that's my confusion too. So as we all know, and I put so what happened is Kansas City in December voted to do Fair Free. They're the first metropolitan area that is voting to implement a plan. They're not Fair Free yet. They also failed in their last attempt to do it. So this kind of spurred on a lot of discussions nationwide starting in January of 2020 in the election year about let's do Fair Free. And so what you got was a lot of studies that were done and about the impact of Fair Free within Asheville, which was done 14 years ago with a completely different transit system in place. The 2012 study, which a lot of those systems don't exist anymore, they abandoned Fair Free, and then some current data that's kind of out there. So one thing is that there's a push from many of the candidates are running on a Fair Free platform. So they want Asheville to be Fair Free. And then secondarily, there is something in the transit master plan about doing a Fair Free trial. But there's also things in the transit master plan here too that wants us to do two-way traffic on College Street, which we're not going to do. So there's a lot of things in the transit master plan. It's a living document that make no sense, that we're probably not going to do, and some that we can. So it's going to depend on, do we treat this as a hard, fast thing? And then I think the other issue on the table for me is that instead of, I feel like we're spending so much time because there's a lot of, about Fair Free that we're failing to talk about extended service hours, better frequency, and all the other things that are actually more likely to increase ridership. And we also have such a low fare already regionally. And there's also different ways of coming out Fair Free that I try to put in the document that's being done in other places, like every student is free, all the elderly are free. It's kind of a hybrid of the Fair Free system. And also understanding the impact of Fair Free is we don't just lose fares on the fixed route side, we lose all the paratransit fares. So this idea that we're only losing 700,000 is a myth. We're also losing another pot of money, which is faster growing. So that's kind of all part of the discussion that's out there.
Yeah, I probably would like to read Thomas's, but before I make that motion, I think I hear that there are many things we can do to improve ridership, and Fair Free is one of them. And it's not necessarily one to the exclusion of the other. And I think Thomas's point, as I understand it, is that he would like to go ahead and ask city staff to go ahead and begin planning for trials, as was suggested in the Transit Master Plan.
Right.
And that will provide additional information that's Asheville specific.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because trials don't actually, okay, as a researcher, I think that's something we need to talk about, because the issue with trials and the data that's been done with trials, and because we just did a service tweak, and because we're talking about doing extended service hours, it's very hard to parse out what causes uptick in ridership, and then when you do a trial, it's also not an indicator of long-term behavior and use of the system. So I think those are all issues we just have to really talk about, because a trial is a trial, but in other studies it's not been indicative of what it looks like in the longer term. of what behavior is. And most, cities have abandoned fare free. It's a very small percentage of cities doing it, and they're mostly ski resort towns and college towns, but they're heavily subsidized by either the tourist industry or they're subsidized by the universities such as Chapel Hill and Boone. Appalachian State and UNC pay for a large part of that system.
Yeah. What I think Tom's letter was it said instead of looking at everybody else, there are studies that they made. At one point in time, there were plans on doing it here, but he wants to instigate it here, and we do our own study. We're looking at everybody else's studies.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
That's what I reading the whole letter wouldn't make any difference. What I'm saying is
No.
That was about the gist of what he said.
Yeah.
Let's do our own thing.
Yeah, because
And get the
That's
results
actual.
from that, and we go from there.
And so I think what we should do, and also I believe there was a weekend trial, and I need to talk to Tom Tomlin about this in 2009. So there was the 2006, and I believe there was another weekend like in 2009 or 2010. Somebody correct me, I'll look this up. That was like a couple of fare-free weekends, so we may need to bring in that data. So let's vote then to read in his thing, the letter. Because we don't have to consider it because he's not here, and I just wanted to make sure that we do this correctly as a point of order. I checked into it, so we just have to vote. So, does anyone make a motion?
Accept the letter.
I move
That we can read it into the minutes, yeah.
That we read Thomas's letter.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, well, let's read it. Anybody? Okay. Jeff, will you read
Let
it?
me do it, and I have a copy of it.
Yeah.
So this is from Thomas Blodwick, Vice Chair of the Transit Committee, written today. I write because I am concerned that the issue of implementing fare-free trials as provided in year one of the Transit Master Plan is morphing into a debate about the pros and cons of fare-free transit. I tried to be clear in advance of and at our last meeting that I am asking for the trials to happen as promised or to at least receive a transparent explanation of why they are not. Despite these efforts, today's agenda item is fare-free impact discussion, and the attachments, while insightful, focus on fare-free transit research generally. The issue is different from whether we follow the TMP, a plan developed with extensive public input and costly paid consultants, and which the Transit Committee, the Multimodal Transportation Commission, City staff, and City Council approved. The TMP recommends fare-free trials in year one. For me, it is a matter of public trust that we implement this agreed-upon recommendation. I was late to the TMP, but I've heard many times that demands for change before the TMP were postponed with responses of, wait for the TMP. Well, fare-free advocates waited and participated in the TMP's development and got a recommendation for fare-free trials. Given that, I am concerned about unjustified deviations from the TMP and this recommendation specifically, especially so early in the TMP's history. It reinforces a cynical view that these plans and processes are not plans for action, but merely ways to absorb and diffuse the public's energy. The research on fare-free is mixed, and the priority of it among riders is mixed. I think the TMP reflects that in its own analysis and conclusions, namely by prioritizing other items and including fare-free trials to see how it works in Asheville today. Maybe it's great, maybe it's not. We need to try it to see for ourselves. More importantly, we promised the public we would. My request is that the city do as promised and implement fare-free trials as soon as possible, both to get better data and to honor those involved in creating the TMP. Absent some new significant justification, it is not for us today, less than a year into the TMP, to reopen these hard-fought compromises. We've received no such justification for the lack of trials, And the mixed research on fare free transit, which the TMP accounted for, is not a new reason to forgo the trials. In closing, I again request that the fare free trials be implemented as soon as possible, or that the public at least receive a transparent and substantial explanation as to why they will not be.
That makes sense.
Discussion?
Frankly, I agree with them. Like, I feel like if we went through all that just to get that into the TMP and then we're not going to do anything with it, why did we do that in the first place? I feel like we're changing our minds, but like, I don't think the hurt would be for a trial.
Right.
Especially if the results are mixed.
What is the length of, does anyone know how the TMP, what is the length of the trial and the TMP specify? Are we back in a 3-month trial? Does anybody know? I didn't, because the last trial we did was 3 months. So does anybody know right off the top of their head what the TMP trial date is?
If I recall correctly, it was weekend trials.
That's what I thought
over
it
the
was
summer.
too. It was just summer weekend. It wasn't even like
Yeah.
so that's gonna not really.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to coincide with all the tweaks we made on January 5th and then occur over the summer. Because
Right.
the TMP was making an assumption of a July 2019 implementation. So it
was-
would have been July 2019.
Okay, and from what you're saying, it wasn't even an extended trial. It was a weekend trial.
Weekends. It was
Just
weekends
weekends.
over the summer.
Just weekends for the summer. So that wasn't even a full run. Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought, yeah,
It just wasn't taken in the weekend perspective. It was just the weekend.
just the weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't the whole week. So what we would want to include in ours, so to say, is 7 days or 30 days, 90 days, whatever. Whatever would be consecutive.
But
That was saying. Yeah.
the issue with that is the TMP, like she said, doesn't say that. The TMP only says weekend. It doesn't say extended. So that means we would be changing the TMP, which we don't have the authority to do. Was it first year?
Doesn't the TMP also say full year implementation? You would test on that or not?
No, I think it was just over the summer specifically.
It was
But
very
the
specific.
TMP, we didn't implement all of
No, we didn't.
first year
No, we
TMP
haven't.
is what
No.
I'm saying.
Oh.
So since you haven't implemented TMP first year, full year, you're talking about doing a test sampling on something that has not been fully implemented.
Correct. Because I think it called for to do it after the extended service hours. And then the problem is, as they've had with every other study, is you can't parse out what actually increases ridership because you just extended the service hours and changed the route.
But the TMP thought you could.
But the TMP thought you could, because they have the magic bullet.
Yeah.
But, that no other researcher has had before them. But, so that's an issue too, is that it calls to do it after the other service changes went into effect on the weekends. Is that a trial? Is that a trial that's gonna give us a lot of data? I guess I'll just put that out there.
Make it free every weekend forever.
But we're talking about a trial. The idea is to collect data on ridership.
So, I don't consider myself expert on this at all, and I'm very open to someone else setting the parameters that make the most sense.
Mhm.
I think Thomas wants to, and this is what I'm motivated by, is to not do further study and to make it Asheville specific and to move forward, to maybe figure out what those parameters are that make the most sense for Asheville, that will reveal what this means for Asheville.
I think the other interesting thing would be what I'd say to you is that no other survey, 2009, 2013, and 2017 asked about fare free. So when you don't ask about it, it wasn't like the hue and cry of people that wanted fare free. It was never asked on the last 3 surveys. And I will say when I sat out there for 8-9 days, I never had one person ask me about fare free transit. They said, "Are you going to raise the prices now that you're doing these tweaks?" And I said, "No." But so when you're in there and you're talking to drivers, you're talking to riders day after day after day, nobody's saying, like, why isn't this free? Because right now with transfers it's 50 cents a ride and 25 if you're think we need to, think about what we're actually doing the trial for. What data do we want from the trial? What the impact of the trial will be in terms of what does that mean to implement the trial? What would that look like? What would have to happen to do that? And my guess is, because you can only have so many things on your plate, is that some things have to slide if you're going to do something else. So what slides because of it, right? So what else would be impacted? So I'm thinking that would all go into the decision making. I'll just throw it out there.
You know, in Hawaii, which had a very good bus system, I lived in Waikiki, and 7 different bus routes stopped in front of my building. But they've raised the price to $2.25, I think. Maybe more by now. And but on the other hand, if you're above 65, you could get an annual bus pass for $35. Which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And
So yeah, I think the issue here is, do we do a trial that I don't know what kind of data a weekend trial after tweaks gives us, or do we take the initiative to do things like, let's make everybody over 65 free, like other places have done, or let's make all students free, like other places have done. So it's either do we do a trial and figure it out, or do we start to move to change the system and look at the impact of what if everybody over 65 was free? What if every student, now it's just under 5, and then some UNC students in AB Tech, but what if we make every student free like they've done in many, many cities? So what if we make the fare free zone bigger than it already is? So I think that's the point that I'm at, is there's things that we can actually take action to make things free right now, or do we want to do the trial? I'm trying to weigh both.
I guess I don't have a really clear sense of how much it would cost or what it would entail to do a trial.
Yeah.
Is that something we can get information on?
Yeah.
I don't know. We would have that.
Hi everyone. I'm currently trying to get information regarding capacity and how much it will cost to implement a fare-free trial. Have you seen the data before? It's not that conclusive.
No, it's not.
It's not that detailed.
No.
And I'm currently trying to figure that out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Beth,
Right.
so I
Go
think
ahead.
what I'd like to do is just to put a motion on the table so we
Okay.
can play with it, is a
Yeah.
motion that we request of city staff to begin the planning of a fare-free trial and invite city staff to figure out what parameters would be most useful to determine, that since this is a trial, to determine what will reveal the most information about how fare-free would work here. You've suggested that it be age-based. One other proposal is that it could be for everyone.
Right.
It could be for students. It could be on weekends. It could be on weekdays.
So would that be, if it's for seniors, say they get on the bus, they have to show their ID? Or because with UNCI, I'm just thinking if we make
Yeah.
an executive demographic, so a senior gets on, they're 65, they're gonna have to prove that.
No, you get a free, you show it, and you get basically like a free pass.
You get a pass.
When you get on the bus.
No, just one time.
I think we're in the
Oh, I see. But I know how the UNCA worked was that you got an actual ID card. I think you
Yeah.
distributed put on it.
You do it
But if
like.
we're going to think about that, and
No,
we're going to think about the
in
students
other
as
cities,
well.
you only have to do it one time, and then you just basically have the same thing as students. You have a free pass.
Free pass, you just show.
You have a free pass and you just show it.
And they just have to go request that from the station.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
basically show it.
You show your ID, fill out a form.
I just feel like if we're going to go ahead and split up different demographics, like students, and if we make multiple different demographics, why not just look at everybody?
Because we can use all the paratransit funds. So So that's what we need to look at, I think, too.
So that's where all the actual fares are going?
No, I mean, because if, once you go completely fare-free, you can't charge anybody any fares across the board, so it makes a big financial impact. So I think that's something that we need to add to that, is looking at the impact also.
Certainly.
Of, because I think what you not only lose the 700,000, you also lose all the paratransit fees coming in. So it's like 1.3 something million.
Yeah.
So it's a big number.
It's
So
$100,000 a month.
it's $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. It's $100,000 a month.
Yeah,
$1.2
$1.2 million.
So
I'm interested.
That we would have to,
somewhere else.
yeah.
1.2 million that somebody would have to subsidize.
Yeah,
Somebody would have to have.
Somebody has to
that
come up and
capital.
subsidize and bring that capital
Has
in.
anybody been on a full bus lately? How do you fill that bus more?
Yeah, some of
You
them
let me
are.
on.
I know, but how do I fill that bus more?
Yeah.
Yeah, the buses would be so full.
That's what I'm getting at.
He let me on.
When
That's how.
Beth started talking, she hit on a few things that were out there in some of those other studies. Not yet, because you have to invest in capital. You have to have more buses. You have to have a facility capable of doing more buses. And you have to have the people to run those buses. Quite honestly,
Huge impact.
we're running in the max range. That doesn't mean you can do separate facilities, other options. But again, those are dollars. And those are things that are all part of the analysis of fare free. I don't think anybody in this room thinks that fare free is going to cause lower ridership. But it is going to cause routes that we will not be picking people up on. I guarantee you that.
Can we get that? I think what we haven't had, and what I'm picking up on, and something you're saying, Barry, is that I would love to get bullet points from you and from y'all to be like, this is likely what the impact of, this is what doing the trial would look like. This is what we think the impact of fare free would be right now. Here's what it would cost, both long term and short term. I think if we can get those hard and fast numbers from Barry and from staff, we need that.
So I made a motion, I don't
Yeah.
think it's been seconded.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's failed in lack of a second. I
No.
think the discussion has been good, because I think
Yeah.
that all the discussion informs my motion, that these are the things that need to be determined as you begin to plan a fare-free trial.
But in going into that fare-free trial, all this stuff going, Asheville has been known, across the country, placing Asheville at the forefront because our fares are the cheapest in the country.
They're really low.
It is.
I just, one other
And
thing.
should leave it like that.
As you guys are thinking about this, we're trying to expand the later service.
Yeah.
Think about everything that the staff is going to go through to get there.
That's right.
There's a lot on the platter. That's the elephant in the room.
It's gonna
So-
push.
And I will
It's
say,
gonna
it's
push.
clear to me, my opinion is that fare-free trials should not interfere with late fee service, late evening service. That's clear to me. But I don't want to be motivated by fear because it might.
I don't believe it's an issue of fear, but it's reality for us in terms of the small staff we have. Making sure that we provide analysis in terms of extending the hours, all the different activities that also need to be completed to make sure that the schedules, everything is, testing the routes again, looking at bus stops. So it's not creating a fear, but also sharing with TC all the different activities that we need to complete, to have the extended hours implemented.
So let me see if I'm hearing you correctly, just if I can. So what I'm hearing you say is that all the planning that you're doing right now for evening hours, which I fully support and I'm grateful for, that's huge, that you actually do not have the capacity to do any planning or thinking about or for a fare-free trial.
I think given the opportunity, we will be able to create the time to do that. But it is also the resources that we have, in terms of working on all the different things that
Plate now.
would allow us to implement the extended hours. So giving the opportunity, I believe we can do so, but it's also sharing that information with TC in terms of all the different priorities that we need to develop.
So did you say you do have the capacity to do it, or did you don't?
We don't,
Okay.
however, we can actually also make the time to do so.
Well, I want you to enjoy your weekend.
I'm sorry?
I want you to enjoy your weekend. I'm not asking you to work on the weekend, but I do value that clarity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the
I'm
second.
on board with that.
Yeah, the second part of Thomas's letter was, if you can't do it, explain why.
Yeah.
That's what we
And that
missed.
was it.
There was a second part. So if we're not going to do the fair fee trials now, as stated in the TMP, which is weekend trials, then let's say why we're not doing it that way and why we're not doing it now and be clear about it. So that's another thing that we could have staff and Barry work on.
Good.
Well, I think we just answered
We
Tom's
did.
second
That's
question.
the
it.
second part of the
We're
question.
not doing it.
I understand why. That, from my understanding, there's all this stuff already going on. They're already working on extended hours. There is no way that they can put fare free in while they're working extended hours. That is what I'm looking at. It's not cost effective. It will cost way too much money. They only have a small staff. There's no way they can do it. That's what I'm looking at. I mean, I understand where everybody's coming from. The fare free is great, but there's already things in the mix that they're working on that they can't just drop and make fare free. They just can't do that. There's only a few people in their staff. I mean, that's asking way too much.
That's what I've been trying.
There's only about
Honestly,
20.
As a contractor to the city, we'd love to add 6, 7, 8 buses and go to repair.
Yeah.
That's what it takes.
Yeah.
That's what I was about to say, you know.
Honestly,
But it costs a lot of money.
we need to plan this better.
Yeah.
It needs to be
Right now, it's not
truly
free.
planned.
Yeah.
You only have, 28 buses or something like that?
Yeah.
6.
26?
Yeah.
A lot of the places that do these things, Honolulu has 250 buses and stuff like that.
Small budget here.
Yeah.
It really is a small
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah, we're not much
I
of a
think the
priority
fact,
city.
at least my opinion would be, we leave it the way it is for a while,
Thank you.
just to
Yeah.
Just
We're
to-
the cheapest in the country, right?
I agree.
Great.
We're the cheapest now.
Yeah,
We're all the interest in it.
absolutely.
Yeah, and again, there was no and I will just say,
Yeah.
there's been no public outcry from when I stood out there, and y'all stood out there, and nobody said, should this be free? They just said, are you guys raising prices? Because it's getting better. And I
There
said,
might be
no.
some feedback on the over 65 or.
And the other thing is, I'm gonna ask,
Doesn't mean that they don't want it.
No.
but if they did, when you stand out there for days and you listen to people, and hundreds of people, nobody said, can this be fare free?
Maybe because they think it's not a possibility.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people in this room, I think, are feeling. Like seriously, it's a business. They consider it a business. I mean, we consider it a
Well, it's
service.
a dollars and cents game and
Still.
Yeah.
and a planning game.
Yeah.
You have to plan it right or you fail.
But the other thing I will say is, if we do the rider survey and the driver survey, and we ask the fare fee question in several different ways, and you don't ask people, do you want fare fee transit? It's a leading question, it's not a yes or no. You ask it like they did on the transit center survey, and you embed it, and you ask people to rank, and there's ways to ask it, and I'll come at it in all different ways. But we'll actually have data from Asheville that says, what do people prioritize? So if we have data coming, then we're going to actually be able to speak better to this later.
I mean, I think that's
With
fair. We
data.
can't do it today.
No. But I mean, and I don't think, I think,
I agree with Mary. It is giving us the opportunity to plan for them and make sure we succeed. And not only that, we also provide that support, whether we go forward or not. Rushing through this is not a great idea. You know?
Okay.
we want to come up with a plan of saying, this is what we need to do, this is how we're going to do it, and then based on that, collect data that will be helpful as to whether this is something we go forward or not. You know, so that's what I'm sharing with the group.
So I think what we're saying is, we're not taking off the table, we're saying, let's do this in a planned way, and let's keep moving with the changes that are happening.
And that follows the TMP.
That's right, because we're not supposed to do the fare fee trials until the extended service hours anyway, but let's do this in a planned way.
I think that's going along with Jeff's motion.
Yeah.
Which
I think my motion failed to lack of a second.
I was honestly considering about what we're considering now, since we're talking about planning, and your whole motion is literally getting city staff to start beginning planning or fix it to get ready is what we say in my family. But like if that's the case, I would second your motion, because I feel like we should I feel like if we're gonna say city staff, I feel like we should still be, all of us should still be involved with that.
Yeah.
Considering we're providing our own opinion. But I would like to see, it would be great if we could have in like 2-3 months, say like having some more city staff come in and we could get more data like that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna second your motion, Jeff.
Restate the motion, Jeff, so do we just know?
So I think the motion I was making was to request city staff that they begin planning for fare-free trials with the understanding that there are a variety of parameters about that, and there would be information coming back, everything from, you know, the loss of funds and paratransit to we need more staff in order to do that. I don't know, but that was my motion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna second that.
Okay. All in favor of just exploring planning?
Yes. Exploring.
Yeah, we're good. Any nays? Yeah. I was good.
I'm good.
Exploring desperate.
Thank you. I think that was great discussion, actually.
So I know we've requested something of staff that they have said they don't have time to do, and I'm not sure what to do with that. But I want to at least acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So Kayla is actually working, so as part of her apprenticeship from NCDOT, she has an independent research project. So her chosen project was to look at fare free.
Okay.
So Kayla is helping us.
Thank you, Kayla.
Since September, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been in the works.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
So
Good. Okay. Ride the bus day?
Yes, so a couple of riders, friends of mine, put the idea in my mind that wouldn't it be great if we had a ride the bus day. I think, and it's such a good point, is that people habitually get in their cars and don't ever think about transit, and we can have a great big publicity campaign about Ride the Bus Day. And Beth and I went back and forth on this, and I'm still in favor of that. But I also know that there is Strive Not to Drive that happens in May. And what I would like to do, instead of putting any energy into Ride the Bus Day for Asheville, is that we think about doing something really big to work with the Strive Not to Drive. That we're gonna really push transit during Strive Not to Drive week. So I'm not really pushing Ride the Bus free day. I'm changing. My changing his thought as my thinking has changed, and I'm inviting staff, giving you another thing to do, to figure out how we can really partner very well with all the publicity we need to do to cooperate with Strive Not to Drive Week. It's in May, and so I don't know what resources you have. A question: Does transit normally participate with Strive Not to Drive?
yeah. So last year, I think it was the first year in maybe a year or two that we participated really heavily. I'm not sure, I wasn't here. I can't say that for certain. But I was working with Richie Roselle at the MPO, who has since left, so I'm not sure who the point of contact at the MPO is for Strive. And I think they formally changed their name to Strive Beyond, so like Strive Beyond Drive. But we worked with the Buncombe County Library, North Carolina Room, and the Swannanoa Valley Museum to do some history on the move panels. There was a Fair Free Day. I don't think it was very well publicized. But yeah, so it's something we've done in the past. I'd like to keep doing it because I know Asheville on Bikes has a huge presence, so it'd be nice for transit to be
I want to
represented
increase
too.
it tenfold.
Okay. Cool.
So, so
Do it.
I want to partner with staff to figure out how we can support that.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
I have a question for you,
Yeah.
Michelle. Are you looking at different themes in terms of ride the bus? Because some systems, that's what they do. Every month, or for instance, have a theme, for instance, going to lunch and have a bunch of people on the bus. And so it is a great idea. And honestly, that's how I came into transit. The system that I interned for, a bunch of us will get on the bus once a month, take a specific route, go to lunch, but on our way back, look at some of the issues for that route. And that really encouraged me in terms of being part of the transit world. So I asked that question as to, is this a one-time thing, or this is something that...
Right now, I feel like it's one time, and that is just to take advantage of something that's already happening and not drain resources, because want to put my energy into customer service. So I really want to strive beyond. Marcella said,
Yeah, strive
just
beyond.
to partner with them. So it's not theme-based, but I'm certainly open to that. And I'm leading a group to lunch on the bus in April from where I live. So we do this already.
Yeah, because I'm living in a place with 24 houses that all work together,
Yes.
in West Asheville. A lot of them may do this, So,
I don't know, do we need to vote on it, but everyone supports you, that we'll all be involved in this?
Well, which week is Strive on the Drive?
It's late May.
Strive
Drive Beyond, yeah.
Prior to drive weekend.
Drive
Oh,
Beyond.
More than that, like that, not
Yeah,
for us.
It's called
I
Strive
feel like we
Beyond.
can table this for future.
Yeah, we'll definitely, yeah, we'll come back, and even if we do the
Drive Beyond.
planning day, we can
Yeah.
even
we
talk
come
more
back to
about
that,
that. Yeah, for sure, but definitely,
Yeah, I don't think we need to.
we're on board.
Good. And I'll take some leadership in that for the transit committee.
Awesome. So in front of you, you have a letter that my glasses aren't. This is so small font. I don't even have a shot at this. This letter came from County Commission and City Council for everybody. Everybody has a copy, so you can put it on the wall.
Can we read it?
Yeah, read it.
I'm going to make a copy and put it on the wall. Dear valued volunteer, on behalf of the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners and the Asheville City Council, we would like to recognize your service to our community through your participation on one of our many boards and commissions. City participation is essential as an effective government, and we appreciate your service. Volunteer service helps strengthen our community in Asheville and Buncombe County by providing a vehicle that links the work of ethical officials, staff, and the community at large. As a way of saying thank you this year, we would like to offer you Southern Conference basketball tournament tickets or a one-day family four-person pass to the WNC Nature Center. 2 complimentary tickets for any one session of the upcoming Southern Conference basketball tournament at the U.S. Cellular Center based on availability on March 5th through 9th. In order to obtain your tickets, you must bring this letter to the box office at Harris Cherokee Center and exchange it for your tickets and a food and beverage voucher. They're open Monday through Friday, 10 to 5. If you have any questions, blah, blah, blah. Okay, or a one-day family four-person pass to the WNC Nature Center on Saturday, March 21st only. Doors open at 10 and close at 5. In order to redeem these tickets, you have to bring them to the ticket office at the WNC Nature Center, where you can enjoy 60 species of animals the WNC Nature Center has to offer. We sincerely appreciate your time and talents and all you have done and continue to do for our community. Sincerely, Brownie Newman, Chairman, Buncombe County Board of Commissioners, and Esther Mannheimer, Mayor, City of Asheville.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm so going to nature center.
Yes, my daughter's a young cheerleader. It's Saturday. It's nice to get stuff for free.
It's nice to get stuff for free.
I know, now to get stuff for free. Can we, given time, can we skip updates from other committees and go straight into the monthly transit report and talk about the OTP and talk about the station reopening?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Does that require approval? Okay, I'm
We're cool. All right. Monthly transit update.
Okay. Basically, the only, I want to say there's an update on the transit station in terms of all the changes that are being made. And the customer service and ticketing area was opened on Monday. And I believe the construction continues. Okay. The only new thing there is the bus stop inventory that we're currently working on. This is an ongoing item. However, we also started looking at the data, and one of the things we're looking to do is consolidate bus stops along the route in terms of looking at usage, productivity, because we have a number of bus stops that are not used at all or have very low ridership. And so part of this report is to just update TC in terms of what we're doing with the data we collected and where we're going with that project.
I think this goes along with something you said maybe 3 or 4 months ago about how some stops are like every block and not necessary. And that's pretty true for things like W1. Definitely, there's that one stretch. I think it's Klingman, where there's the 3 stops, and one in the middle could definitely just cut out entirely. Honestly, there's no reason for not. And there's plenty of stops that probably cut out like that.
So that's part of the exercise, looking at stops that are too close and making sure that we have better distances between them. So we have a different criteria for downtown area and then, suburban areas in terms of how they're, spaced. And it also a good way to help the OTP that we continue to improve upon, make the service better.
Go ahead.
I think for W1, which I W1 or W2, but on the W1 bus, that I would get off at Vermont Avenue, crossing the Shell station. But there's a bus stop there, but there's no place to use it. It just more or less the buses just stop in the street, and and they don't really open the back door because it might hit a car and something like that. So I don't know what to do about that, but I'd rather not get rid of it. I'd rather make some space for it, like a bus stop. Wouldn't even have to build anything. Paint the street or something like that.
We'll take a look at it.
Please.
So Unisci, in your transit division budget, February 14th is a city council retreat, and that's not the date. Do you know when the date is for the city council retreat? It's in March.
Yes, it is in March. This was taken off the website. This information was taken off the website. So
Yes, I called Maggie Burleson.
Okay.
And that's, I think.
I apologize if it was the wrong information.
Yeah, I want to attend that. I want all of us. I want to invite as many of us as can to go to the city council retreat.
Okay.
I think it's March.
Yeah, I think so too.
Do we know the date?
I'm afraid I give a wrong date.
Okay.
See if I wrote it in my calendar.
I'll review and provide the corrected information.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
There. Yeah. Marcel, I went over to the center today, so Do you know what the timeline is for the Wi-Fi being up, the feeds being up on the screens that are there, and the new seats being in?
So I know the furniture, I think they were talking about, Barry, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were in the room too. Not this Sunday, but the next Sunday, the benches should be arriving. So they'll do an install after hours, so to not disturb our operations. The Wi-Fi, the last I heard was the end of February, but I can follow up on that.
Okay. The feeds on the screens, they're hanging, but they're blank. So you have a screen outside, you have a screen inside, so I'm assuming that's where your information.
The real-time information.
The real-time information.
Let me follow up on that, because I don't think we discussed that this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed the screens were kind of up, but.
Monitors, yeah.
Yeah, the monitors are up.
Yeah, because all the electric is in there. So I'm wondering if they're just, we have Wi-Fi for dispatch, so they should be able to run. So I don't know if it's a matter of just flipping a switch and turning them on.
Okay.
Let me
Okay,
double
because they're
check.
not on.
Yeah, there are a couple of things
Yeah.
electronically they're working through yet, so.
Okay.
It's coming, quicker than later.
Okay.
And will it be the same electronics that we had before the renovation began? Because I've never been able to figure out how to make sense of those screens. I used to understand the old screens, and we lost something, and we went to something that was free.
So the old screens were something that NextBus provided. So I know that they broke before our contract with NextBus ended, and they didn't get replaced. But those were proprietary to NextBus. So a really big difference between Swiftly and NextBus is that NextBus, their information is all proprietary. So if you tried to look up schedule information on Google Maps, it would only show you the timetable. It wouldn't show you real-time estimates. But the reason for switching to Swiftly is that that data was available to Google. It was available to a transit app. So what is being used on those screens until is Transit App's sister product, Transit TV, which is meant to be used at transit stations and shown larger so that it's meant for TV, not for your phone.
Is it supposed to say when the next bus arrives, when the next bus departs?
Arrives.
When it arrives. Do we have reason to believe that it's accurate?
It's showing the same information that you're pulling from whether you use Google Maps or Transit App. So if there's any issues,
I don't use either of those. So.
I would. They really are. They're very accurate. They work all the time. They work all the time. When I use Transit App, it's right there. Google Maps is even better.
Yeah.
Because you can plan your trip, and it'll say, take this bus, and this bus will stop here, and it'll say on time, or it'll say running late, or it'll say running early. It actually will tell you that.
but I think the thing that is of note, like Barry was saying, there are dead zones.
Yes.
And that just has to do with cellular data in Asheville. And there's certain places on the map. I know Lakeshore up on the N1, there's a small space where it's a dead zone. So if you're looking at the transit app, it'll switch to the schedule, like the posted schedule, instead of real time. And then as soon as it gets out of the dead zone and back into a place that has data, it'll update. So there's brief hiccups in which people will get bad data, and that's what we've been working with Swiftly.
Creek has been notorious for dropping out.
Right.
A bunch of dropouts.
Yeah.
No, not the people.
Okay.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, sorry, I interrupted you, Tori.
Oh, no, I was just seconding, like, the app has been great. I'm
Yeah.
a big fan, yeah.
Yay.
Okay, can we, during time, let's look at that. We talked a little bit about the OTP data, but let's look at the other data. We had the complaint data, all the data from RA TB Dev.
I can talk about the complaint data. There's, I think my sense is that there is a lot more information there.
Yeah.
A lot more attempts to reach out to customers. I will tell you that of the 16 complaints that are listed, 3 of them, there was no mention that there was any effort to reach out to the customer, where I think there could have been.
Okay. Of the 3 of them, and that was for January, February.
January.
January.
Yeah. my notes here. One of them was just completely incomplete. It just said good morning. I didn't follow that, what that was. There were some, and this is just my personal issue. It says we sent a maintenance request on this issue. I have sent maintenance requests that are never received. So I would like to see follow through, though, that it was received and the repair was made. That would help me know, and then that information can be communicated. Well, I think maybe even on those you can communicate then with the customer to let the customer know that it's been addressed. So again, just closing the loop with the customer. Working for 100% there. Thank you.
Am I dreaming, or does the list only one of the Proteras in service? Or,
No, we have all 5 in service. It's just we're using 2 of them on routes normally in the morning,
okay,
and then we're relieving 2.
okay,
So the problem is when it's as cold as it is,
yeah,
you know, we're not getting much more than 5 hours.
W2 run-ins.
okay,
So, I mean, after mid-morning, by the time it rolls out at 6 a.m. So then we're relieving it, and then we're relieving it again, you know, around 2 or so, and then again. That's it. So it really, you've got, right now, 5 Protera buses equals 2.5.
2.5, so, okay,
Yeah, it will be a little better in the summer.
okay,
If they run considerably farther in the summer, it's the electric heat and the fans that really go. The AC runs amazingly cheaper on that. You know, it doesn't draw as much. So, but no, they're up and going.
okay. Probably because I'm blown up really big, I'm missing that on the list and on the insert. So
That's a pretty serious critique of the electric buses in the wintertime, is that correct?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay, just want to be clear about that.
Yeah, you're talking about $800,000 vehicles and
yep,
the 5. Really, you're running 2 rounds. The other problem is that 35 foot, we can't use them on everything. You know, there's several issues with them, but we're trying to run the wheels as much as we can.
As a related issue, has there been any investigation of the faster recharger? My understanding there are slow recharging systems and fast recharging systems. That would obviously be a significant capital expense.
We're 4-hour recharge right now. That's about as fast as you're going to get out of that. There are overhead chargers you can get.
That's what
You can pull into a bay and
Yeah.
put, you know, if you're there 10 minutes, it gives you 10 minutes of charge. You know, those are out there. Those are $1 million investments.
$1
$1 million investments.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
But we're talking about 4,
For bus.
5, 800. Oh, one for bus?
for
That's
about,
one bus.
yeah,
I mean, that bus, you know, you can only get one. But let's say you could potentially really get creative with scheduling and pull 2 of those in, 1 every hour. Okay, now you might get all day out of it with a 10-minute charge every hour. That's, you know, that would be the test to see if that can happen. So, yeah, but that means you're going to have a bus that is on this route going into the bay that has the charger, which is a different route. I mean, it gets very. Now, if we go to electronic notification on the post as far as what route is coming, that's a possibility. It gets created. And there's talk of going to that electronic notification rather than, you know, wraps on poles and stuff. And the wraps are coming. That's all part of the finish the one on the north side, and we'll work on the south side, and we'll get all that stuff done. Or the contractor will. But yeah, it's not a real positive thing on the electric buses. But again, you have to invest in the whole thing if you're going to get them to run all day. And That's really the kind of thing that's coming out of everything that's happened in the last 5 years on electric is everybody's learning. You've got to invest in the rest of it, which is remote charging. I mean, you have to have the recovery time built into your routes, a place to do it, and it doesn't make sense to put it on the N1 at the north terminal and do one bus. But I mean, you're talking about a large infrastructure to get that kind of zapped voltage, amperage, I don't know which it is, to the bus.
I think probably in 5 years, a lot of this will be better and different, you know.
It will. You
Right.
are absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, right now it's,
Yeah.
Yep. I agree with you. It's coming. It's coming fast because the batteries are going to improve. The systems will improve. Electricity is electricity. You still have to get it from the power station to these are large charging systems. It's not like your car battery. It's just not anything close.
Can we go to rider experience? We've got about 7 minutes left, so I want to go around and have time for public comment. So,
Rider experience?
yep.
So yeah, I'll just, I had the first time to ride the 170 at night, last night. I've just noticed how difficult visibility is. There's not the lights of the city or businesses. And I mean, I had a flashlight shining in my face, so I got fine. But then when the bus went to pick up the next passenger, it seemed like you had about the length of a bus before the passenger came into sight. And then, so when the bus started to stop, it went way beyond. And so it occurred to me, I'm thinking lighted stop sign, bus stops on the 170 route made sense to me. Has anybody ever heard anything like this?
This is a very dark neighborhood. It really is at night. Everywhere here.
Yes.
There aren't lights here. There's just very few lights out there. So it is like that almost everywhere, except for the downtown corridors. There's not a lot of lighting out there. People walking in the dark, there's a lot of that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So it just made sense to me that we would try to light a bus stop.
Well, isn't that a city thing or county thing? That's nothing that we would do. Because you're actually putting in
investment.
It's an investment. You're putting in
Serious
lights.
So that's my rider experience.
I like to say, give big props out to Jerry, the maintenance man. He does the best he can with what he got during the course of the day. He keeps the bus stops looking best he can. And then we do have our people who they just do phenomenal things at bus stops.
Yes, they do, don't they?
Yeah. You can sit there and you stand right there looking at them, and they're still going to do their thing.
Yep.
They use the bathroom right there at the bus stop. Doesn't matter. Full daytime.
Knocking the windows out.
I try that. Police will ride straight by and I go to jail. I like to compliment Jay, the driver. He's new and he's on S1. He does a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. And have you considered on the electric buses about when they're on the inclines about putting a sign on the back of them, stay back 10 feet, because they do have once you go from your brake to your gas, the go button, it does have a give back on it.
Here's the deal. It goes 2 inches. That's it. If it's going more than 2 inches, then our driver isn't doing the right thing.
He's not doing the right thing every time.
I need to know those.
Patch square that goes back like that.
Yeah. No, it's a 2-inch backdrop. That's it. That's the way they're designed, and that's how it should work.
And then I understand we did have one accident on our buses where a woman stepped off and smashed her hand and almost smashed her face. She came out all right. And then we did have a Trump supporter down out of Goodwill where he had a great big fight and had to call the police. Everything came out all right with that.
Yeah. Yep.
He was a supporter.
Thank you for that.
I think, we're getting underway now from the change, Most of the things that need to be in place are in place. And I think what I want to do now is just ride a couple of different bus routes that I haven't ridden before and see what they tell me, I guess. I think you're doing a good job.
Thank you. It isn't me, it is the people. And I think with a little guidance there, aren't any of us perfect, but for the most part, we're doing a pretty good job out there. I feel pretty good about it. Thank you.
Everything for this past month's been great. I haven't had any problems.
Good.
Everything's been good.
Very good. Don't break the stream, Beth. Come on.
What? No. All I want to say is that the one thing
Yeah.
is that, and then who's the person I kept hanging out with? She has short hair. I love her. I decided I want to take her home with me. She's one of your supervisors.
Sheila.
Okay, me and Sheila are like, So Sheila and I went around, and what we noticed, and I noticed it, and I talked to the driver when I was there real quick, is that thank you for the yellow stripping for blind people. But there used to be a red zone, which told the buses where to, and told people in wheelchairs where you actually stop, and it's all yellow now. So one of the drivers was like, we need the red back. And Sheila was like, you got to put the red in. Because that used to tell the drivers where to line up the bus. And it's gone now that it's all yellow. So and that's not an ADA. As long as it's high contrast, it's still okay with ADA.
Yeah.
So it could be red. But that used to, basically what she said, used to tell the bus drivers where, and people in wheelchairs is where it would actually stop and the doors would open.
I think
So I'll just put that out there.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, because the red used to be there and it was gone. You can still see the remnants of red. But
We're putting in on that yellow.
yeah, it's going on top of where the red is.
Right, but the curb's still there, and the curb's yellow. So I think the top of that curb's visible enough that that's probably where we can do some red.
Yeah, you can do the red behind
Yeah,
it, and it would still be ADA.
Yeah.
Okay, just put that out there.
I actually don't have anything to comment. I've had a pretty good month as far as the bus goes.
Good.
Yeah, I was actually going to say the same.
Good.
Yeah, no complaints.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, public comments. Number 2, come up if you'd like to make public comment, please.
I couldn't help myself. I had to say something, right?
Hey.
My name is Kim Roney, and I'm a regular bus rider in West Asheville. And I just wanted to say that I am so thankful for all of you that bus from all over the city to come all the way downtown to advise from your professional and lived experience, but often I can't hear you. And I heard that from other folks in the audience today. So please value your own voice and the folks that are also in the room by leaning into that microphone like it's karaoke night. And that'll make it easier for folks who are watching the stream as well. And I also wanted to make a comment about fare free. We are so behind on what is needed for transit in our community for it to be efficient and reliable for bus riders like us. And so we've been told to wait until the transit master plan and wait till the transit master plan for years. So the evening service hours have to be the highest priority at this time. And I recognize that. And then our South Asheville routes in fiscal year 2, our riders and our neighbors in South Asheville need geographic equity of service. We need to get cars off the road, and that means prioritizing the routes that are way far behind in our frequency. But I want us to have something that we can train for. I want us to have a really efficient system that runs so often that folks can rely on it and get out of their cars, and that the folks who don't have cars will have more accessibility. I do not think that we are going to get there by adding one bus at a time, but I do think that fare-free transit, by adding ridership, by planning in advance, will force us to have more frequent services, especially when we plan in advance so that we don't leave people behind. So don't be afraid. We can't leave people behind. Ask questions. Keep asking questions like I did last month about how much it costs to take people's money. Think about the number of times that you've seen someone with groceries and a stroller and their children, and they're seeking either their pass or their money. And if that person was able to just get on the bus and sit down, what that would do for on-time performance. And so keep pushing, keep asking lots of questions. and so thankful for you.
Anyone else? Public comment? Oh, we're done. Hey, almost on time. Thank you all. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here